Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name's Ronald, and I've been married for several years, long enough to know that when something starts to shift in your partner's behavior, you will feel it. You might not be able to explain it right away or even prove it, but deep down, you know. The night my wife, Mackenzie, casually told me, "I'm going out tonight," I looked at her and said, "If you go, don't come back. I will be giving you the entire stew." Because what led to that moment wasn't a sudden outburst. It was slow, painful years of giving everything, only to realize I had become a stranger in my own home. Back then, I was just starting out as a newly certified doctor. I had put in years of grueling work, long nights studying, unpaid internships, endless hours in hospitals, and finally, I had earned that white coat. I was full of hope, full of plans, and full of belief in the kind of future I could build. That's when I met Mackenzie. Mackenzie was beautiful. She was already working as a sales assistant in one of the biggest fashion companies in the country. She knew her job like the back of her hand, and even with her busy schedule, she still found time to show up for me, for us. Those early days were golden. She was affectionate, emotionally open, and present. We dated for a few years, both focused on building our careers. I was still chipping away at my student loan, and I was serious about it. Every extra shift I took was all with the goal of clearing that debt as soon as possible, so we could start a life without that burden hanging over us. When the timing felt right and I had made significant progress on my loan, and we were both standing on stable ground, we decided to get married. We didn't go all out with the wedding. It was a simple ceremony with just our closest family and friends. We made vows that day to be patient, to support each other, to grow together. And I truly believed we were going to do all of that. I was proud of where we were and excited about where we were going. If you had asked me back then, I would have told you, without hesitation, that Mackenzie was my person. After the wedding, Mackenzie and I were settling into what I assumed would be the first chapter of a long and happy life together. My job as a doctor paid well, but the weight of the remaining student loans still sat heavy on my shoulders. So I sat my wife down and told her my plan. We would wait before having kids. Not because I didn't want children, but because I wanted to start our life on solid ground. I needed to get those loans off our backs. The quicker I paid them off, the more financial freedom we'd have down the road with no interest piling up. But Mackenzie didn't take that news the way I hoped she would. In fact, the moment I explained it, she became genuinely upset. She believed that we didn't need to pay the loans off aggressively. Her idea was to just make the minimum payments each month and use the rest of our money to start looking for our dream house. She had this vision, and I won't lie to you. That vision sounded beautiful to me too. But the reality was, chasing that dream house while still being buried under 6 figures of debt felt reckless. She also reminded me of something she had mentioned back when we were dating, that once we started having kids, she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. She wanted to be fully present for our children, raise them herself, and be there for every milestone. And I respected that deeply. I know not everyone sees the value in stay-at-home parenting these days, but I do. I was raised by a mother who worked multiple jobs and barely had time for us. The idea of my children growing up with their mother around full-time, it felt like a gift. But that vision also came with a price. If she wasn't going to work, that meant I had to be the sole breadwinner. And being the only one bringing in income while also servicing a mortgage and student loans didn't just feel like pressure. It felt like walking into financial quicksand. We went back and forth for hours that night. I tried to explain that it wasn't about being stingy. But to her, all she heard was no kids, no house, not now. That was the night we had our first real argument as husband and wife. Looking back now, I realized that argument wasn't just about debt or a house. It was the beginning of a deeper divide that would only grow with time. After our first major argument about finances, I decided I would be the one to bend. She wanted the house. She wanted the life she had always dreamed of. And I wanted her to feel fulfilled. So I took on the responsibility without asking her to compromise. I started picking up more shifts at the hospital. My colleagues used to joke that they saw more of me than their spouses did, and honestly, they weren't wrong. Most nights, I'd come home long after midnight. Some days, I barely had enough time to shower and change before heading back out. I missed birthdays, date nights, weekends. Basically, I missed life happening at home. But I told myself it was temporary, and once we got the house and the debts were gone, things would calm down, and I'd finally get time back with my wife. And look, I won't lie and say it didn't hurt being away so much. It did. There were nights I came home so exhausted I couldn't even bring myself to eat. I'd tiptoe into our bedroom while Mackenzie slept and hope that all this sacrifice meant something to her. Eventually, it started to pay off. After over a year of stretching myself thin, I finally cleared the last of my student loans. I could breathe again. And on top of that, I'd saved up enough for the down payment on a house. But even with the financial part coming together, we still hadn't moved in because Mackenzie had a list of changes she wanted done before we settled in. Things like redoing the floors, adjusting the kitchen layout, changing out the bathroom tiles, and repainting the walls. And sure, these weren't unreasonable requests on their own. I mean, it's her home too. But what started as a few touch-ups quickly turned into weeks of back and forth with contractors and more delays for council approvals. When the weight of my student loan finally got lifted off my shoulders, I thought things would finally start falling into place, and more importantly, I could be present for my wife, for our marriage, and for the home we were building. But the moment I slowed down and looked around, I realized things had changed. My wife wasn't the same woman I married. It was easy for her to pull away when I initiated intimacy with any excuse. "I'm tired," she'd say, or, "Not now, I've got things to do." But those excuses started stacking up. Being more at home felt like I was interrupting a life she had gotten used to without me. I concluded that we both needed time to adjust now that I wasn't constantly gone. But as the days turned into weeks, I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. Almost every day, she came home late, and the excuses she gave insulted my intelligence. One day it was traffic, but the route she took was barely ever congested, especially at that time. Another time, she claimed she had to cover for a colleague, but she works in sales, not in emergency services. Even on weekends, when most people are resting or spending time with loved ones, she found reasons to leave the house. A coffee date here, an errand there. There is always something that takes her away from me. And yet, I still didn't react. I reminded myself that we had just secured our dream house, and once we moved in, she'd come around. Things would settle, and we could finally start talking seriously about starting a family. But even that felt like a fading dream. Our arguments had become more frequent, and the topic of kids, once something we both wanted, now felt like a landmine. We couldn't talk about the future without clashing. It's months after reducing my workload, and at this point, I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had stayed quiet long enough, hoping the cold tension in the house would melt on its own. But it didn't. One evening, after another one of her random disappearances, I told Mackenzie straight, "I don't like the way we've been living." I told her we barely talk, we don't spend time together, and she's always gone, both physically and emotionally. I was tired of pretending that we still felt like a couple. But instead of listening or even pretending to understand, she exploded. It was like she had been waiting for me to say something so she could unload. She called me selfish, said I had spent years putting my job first, and leaving her to feel lonely and unwanted. She said that all those nights I was working late, all the times I left for shifts without so much as sitting down for dinner with her, added up to neglect. And now that she was finally trying to live her life and enjoy herself again, I suddenly had a problem with it. It was hard to listen to her say those things because I had worked myself to the ground for us. And now she's saying I neglected her? Then she threw out something new by adding that she's in her baby girl phase now. I was completely confused. She explained that it's a stage where she just wants to enjoy herself, live freely, and do what makes her happy without answering to anyone. She said I couldn't tell her what to do, that she owed it to herself to focus on herself. In that moment, it was like I was speaking to a stranger wearing my wife's face. After that argument, it became crystal clear that nothing I said was going to fix things. Every day, she grew more distant. Sometimes she would say she was going to hang out with friends, and other times she'd walk out the door without a word. It was like I didn't exist when I was around. And when I wasn't, she didn't bother to check if I was even coming home. The more I watched her slip away, the more I realized I needed answers, not guesses. So, I did what I never thought I'd do, by hiring a private investigator. The guy wasn't cheap, but I didn't care anymore. I needed to know what she was up to. It took weeks for the PI to come back with a report. And what I saw made my stomach turn. Mackenzie wasn't just emotionally distant. She was living like she wasn't even married. But even then, I didn't confront her with yelling or threats. I still wanted to try talking to her one last time and see if we could work on our marriage. But instead of taking that olive branch, she came at me again. Told me I was trying to control her life. That I was being manipulative. She flipped the script like I was the villain. That was the moment I knew she had checked out for good. And I knew I had to start thinking about my exit. One evening, I was sitting on the edge of the couch, barely paying attention to whatever was on the TV. My eyes kept drifting toward our bedroom door because I could hear Mackenzie moving around inside. A part of me already knew what was coming. It had become a pattern by that point. She'd spend more time getting ready to go out than she ever spent around me. When she finally stepped out, I was stunned into silence for a moment. She was dressed in something that, frankly, didn't reflect a woman who was married. I asked, "Where exactly are you going?" She barely glanced in my direction and said flatly, "It's none of your business." That was it for me. Something just snapped. I looked at her and said, "If you go, don't come back." She paused for half a second, like she wasn't sure I meant it. But when I didn't say anything else, she turned around and walked out. And right there, I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I had let her push the line too many times. She had tested my patience, my commitment, and my love, and I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt. But not this time. I meant what I said. That night, before she even had a chance to return, I packed a few essentials, some clothes, and important documents, and left. The very next morning, I didn't waste time. I was tired of letting things drag on. I searched for a well-rated divorce attorney in town and called for an urgent appointment. Thankfully, I got in that same day. I told him I wasn't looking to fight dirty, but I wasn't going to let myself be cornered either. I asked him one simple question: how fast can we file? His team moved quickly. Within 48 hours, divorce papers were ready and served to Mackenzie right at her workplace. She didn't call or text when she came home and saw I was gone. But once she received the legal papers at her office, she called. The tone in her voice wasn't sadness, it was rage. "You're about to lose everything," she barked into the phone like she was delivering a warning. I stayed calm and replied, "No, I'm not." Then I sent her some of the photos and videos the private investigator had gathered. It was an intimate photo of her with the mayor of our city, a married man, by the way. The type of man whose scandal would blow up the internet if the right eyes saw it. Then I gave her a straight option. These will trend when they get out. But we don't have to go that route. Sign the papers, and we'll have a clean break. Quiet and quick. She tried to act unbothered. Said she didn't care. That she had nothing to hide. But her voice cracked in places, and I knew she cared a lot more than she let on. She just didn't want to lose control. Eventually, she signed the papers. Months had passed since the divorce was finalized. I came across an investigative piece about the mayor. Apparently, a journalist had been digging into his affairs. They set him up and caught him again, this time red-handed with another woman. But instead of covering it up like before, the journalist blew the lid off everything. A full exposé. Names, dates, venues, hotel receipts, surveillance footage. And yep, Mackenzie's name was right there in the article. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little, because even after I had caught her, she didn't end things with him. I had walked away from the chaos before it pulled me under completely. This confirmed what I already knew in my gut, that walking away, when I did, was one of the best decisions I ever made. If you find yourself in a situation like this, where your effort gets met with silence or contempt, ask yourself, how long will you keep investing in someone who's already emotionally gone? What would you do? I know a lot of men out there are grinding, working insane hours to build something for the people they love. But too many of us are blindsided when the people we're building for have already emotionally left the room. If that's you, talk to someone. Don't stay silent. And don't ignore what your gut keeps whispering. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share your own story if you feel comfortable. Let's look out for each other. And hey, if this video hit home, like it, share it, pass it on. Someone out there might need to hear it today.